Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you all I know about Copics. That's what I'm going to call this video. Now I've filmed this video over 3 or 4 months. So the first part of the video is before I went to Singapore and got a whole load of refills. So there's a break between it and I'll show you where it goes. I start off with what I had initially, and then in December I went to Singapore and got a whole load of refills. So I finish off the video in February 2022. But I had started the initial recording of the video in October 2021. So bear with me. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And if you do subscribe, remember to press the notification bell so you're alerted when new videos are uploaded. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you some music and I'll be talking through quite a bit of the video. So hope you enjoy the bits I have to share with you. There are 3 types of Copic markers. You've got the classic Copic marker, which has got a barrel size that is large and can hold a lot of ink, which means you don't have to refill it as often. There are 214 colors in the range of the classic Copic markers. It's got a bullet tip. This is the bullet tip, and it's got a chisel tip. So all the markers have a chisel tip. It's just that this one's got a bullet tip. These 2 markers, you got the sketch marker, which has got an oval shaped barrel. It holds a medium amount of ink, but you do have to refill it if you use it quite a bit. And it's got a brush tip. The brush tip to me is the most versatile. I really like the brush tip. It's got a brush tip and it's also got a chisel tip. Now if you want, you can change the chisel tip to a brush tip too. But then, you don't need to do that. I don't do that because I've got the brush tip, and if the brush tip gets worn out, I can always replace the brush tip with another brush tip. And you've got the Xiao markers. Now these markers are at a lower price point, and they've got a brush tip and also a chisel tip. So there are 3 markers types you can buy. Now this 2 at a higher price point, and this one, the Xiao marker, is at a lower price point. Now these are usually for beginners. There's only 180 colors. I say only. 180 is a large number of colors. There's 180 colors in this range, and you can always start with the Xiao markers and go on to buy more sketch markers if you want more colors. Because the Xiao markers, the sketch markers have got 358 colors, and finally the classic has got 214 colors. So it really depends on you. I've got a little chart here that you can see. So this is all the information that I have on it. So when I say this has got a chisel tip, so basically this is what I mean. It's got a chisel tip, and this one's a bullet tip. Whereas the sketch marker has got a brush tip, which is what I use the most, and it's also got a chisel tip. Now, when I use the sketch markers, this is the most I mostly have sketch markers. I change when I refill. I take the nib out on this side, on the chisel tip, because it doesn't get damaged if I do that. This brush marker it'll get damaged more easily. So that's what I do. And the Xiao marker has got a brush tip as well and a chisel tip, same as the sketch markers. So it really depends what you want to do. Now with the classic marker, you could change the nibs because it doesn't have the brush chip tip that's easily to use. You can easily change this to a brush tip. There's a round tip, there's a brush tip, there's a soft tip, there's a calligraphy tip. There's so many other tips, 7 other tips you can use to change this. But I've only got one of these. I just wanted to see, when I saw this initially, I've only got one classic marker because I bought it on its own. I wanted to see the difference. Then I realized that all these markers come in sets. I did quite a bit of research, so I realized if you buy them in sets, they don't necessarily go together when you want to do your shading and your coloring. So what I did is I did a lot of research and decided to buy color families of colors that would go together. So this is just to show you the types of Copic markers in the market. Easily customizable is the classic. It's got the largest barrel, so you don't have to fill your ink in too often, but it doesn't have the brush tip. Now you could replace the nib with the brush tip, but it's not cost effective to do it that way. Then you got the sketch markers, which is the largest number of colors. It holds a medium amount of ink, so you do have to replace it if you use it, but not as often as a Xiao. It's got the brush tip that I use most often, and the most versatile in my opinion, and it's at a higher price point. And it's the most popular because of the largest number of colors it has in its range. And finally, of the Xiao markers, it's got the smallest number of colors in its range, which is the lowest number of colors in its range, which is 180. It is for beginners. It's at low price point as well. If you're not sure, you could always start with the Xiao markers, and then if you really like it, add the additional colors with the sketch markers. The colors are the same. The colors are pretty much the same. If the tips get worn out or they get damaged, you can always buy replacement tips. So the brush tips, if you use a lot of it, it can get a little bit damaged sometimes, so you can always get a replacement tips. Now, one of the reasons the Copics are more expensive than other brands is that the Copic takes quality control very seriously. Each marker is hand tested for quality and color consistency before it leaves the factory. Copic also takes great care to ensure that the inks are consistent from batch to batch. So when you buy a new refill bottle or marker, you know exactly what you're getting. And today I'm going to show you how I store my Copics, how I swatch my Copics. So this is something I just printed off the internet just to keep track of all the Copic markers I have. And where I have a refill, I put an R there. I don't have many refills. I'm quite new to Copics. So these are all the Copic markers that I have. And I've also got the Hex Chart from Sandy Alnock, who is a guru in Copic colors. So this keeps track of what are the colors that are close to each other. Now, they don't exactly go by the numbers. There's a whole system to this, but the closer together she has put those together so you can use them together. So I tend to kind of get my colors in clusters rather than buy Copic sets. I think if you want to start with Copics and you're a beginner, there are so many websites out there with regards to what are the beginner colors you need. I'm a beginner, so I went and got some colors that would work together. So you can see clusters of them that will work together. But I also am putting together, I want to swatch them and see if I want to have a blue violet, what is the color combination. I'm going to use the waffle flower color swatches stamp to do that. Let me show you how I do that. So what I've done here is I have cut this cardstock to just lengthwise. I've cut it. This is 3.5 inches. And I'm going to use this stamp to keep them. So this stamp here, I like swatching colors, so you don't have to constantly test what color works the next time you want to use it. So most of the color combinations I have for Copics are either in trios or quads, so 3 colors or 4 colors to the shading from light to dark. However, this is only, so what I want to do is I want to put the color individually in these smaller rectangles and do the shaded color here. So I want 4 of these smaller rectangles, but I've only got 2 here. So I'm going to do some masking before I stamp. So I'm going to put a piece of paper here to mask this off. And because I'm going to be using alcohol inks, I'm going to be using Memento ink. These are alcohol ink friendly. Now I'm going to do multiple of this and I'll be right back. So I've stamped a few here, ready to start my swatching. Now before I do that, I'm just going to say that this stamp set comes with a coordinating dies as well. You can cut it in many ways, so you can cut this entire thing off if you want. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to just store it next to where I store my Copic markers. Now you don't need every single Copic marker. You want every single Copics marker in the market, but you don't need everyone. So here, for example, I've got 5 sets of blues. These two are blue-greens, which are teal-ish, and these are blues. And I've got the combinations here, some on 3s and some on 4s. The first color combination is dark blue-green trio. So you've got BG11, BG72 and BG78. Now I'll put all the color combinations I have on my blog, so do head over to my blog and have a look at them. So this is a trio. So what I do is I will go with BG11 first, and I'll put a full color here. So I'll know exactly what the color is going to look like, because these are the papers I'm going to use when I use Copics. If you notice, there's a bit with a gray trim and one without. The one with the gray trim is when you have the bullet point, and the one without is where you have the chiseled point. I don't really use this point, but this is the point you use when you want to remove your nib and pour your refills in. How do they look when they are blended? I'm going to do that here. So here you've got a third of this, a third of this, and a third of this. I'm going to do a bit of blending. I take this and blend here. And this one is going to be blended here. So give it a chance to dry, and then you can see a blended version. So this is what the color will look like. And these are the individual colors. So I'm going to do that for all of this, and I'll come back. Do head over to my blog, you want to see. So I've got blues, greens. So how I've done it is, I've got a card for this, from blue violets to red, from yellow reds to green, from blue greens to blue, and one for the earth colors. I don't have many cool tones or grays, but that's kind of how I've put my cards. I don't think I'll get many more Copics, because these are quite costly, and I want to stick to a color palette that I like, and I'm going to go with that for now. Once I've done this, I want to remember what colors these are, because I won't know what colors these are. So I'm going to use my Copic multi-liner. It's a very thin 0.3 nib. So I'm going to use my Copic liner to list out what they are. So I'll put here BG11, BG72, and BG78. So you can see here what colors they are, and you look at the combination are. And this is a dark blue-green trio. It's a good guide or swatch for the colors you want to use. There's also a zero, which is a colorless blender. I'm sure there are many fancy ways of using this, but what I use it is to remove mistakes. Like this one has come out of the line a little bit, so I just remove it by just... Now it'll get really wet, but it'll dry clear. So it transpires this color, B32. I've had it for a wee while. It's gone. So can you see it's hardly gone. Hardly got inks, and you can see the tips getting a little bit white. That means the ink is gone. I got a refill for this. When you fill in the refill, you should use a tweezer like this and remove the chisel tip, because the other tip is quite easy to get. Yep. And you remove it. Now you can change this nib to both her bullet tip. I don't have enough of that, so I'm just going to put this back. And see, because this has been tilted this way, this tip is no longer white. See how smooth? So this was before I filled it in, and that's now. Here is the completed set of blues and greens that I have. So these are the colors I have, all the colors that I have, and I've grouped it into color combinations that I would use. And that's why I think it's better to buy colors that coordinate and color families that coordinate rather than buy Copic sets, because this way you know you're going to be using them in 3s or 4s or even 2s depending on the shades that you want to get. I will list all of these color combos in my blog, so head over to my blog. The link is in the description below. I've updated my Hex chart since my trip from Singapore. As you can see, I've got many more R's, which stands for the refills I've got for the Copic markers. I didn't get many more Copic markers, but I certainly got quite a few refills because the price point in a shop I found called Art Friends in Singapore was a lot more competitive than the refills that I could get in the UK. So I did go a little bit crazy. But then again, I got very specific refills for the color combinations I know I'm going to use, so I can use it confidently without running out of a marker, running out of ink in a marker. This is how I store my Copic colors. These are the colors I have. So I've got my BGs here, which are the teals, the blues, the yellow greens, the lighter reds, some colorless blenders. And I've only got 3 cool grays. I don't really know what to do with grays yet, so I'm still learning. And here I've got a few more blues as well. Now these blues, obviously I use them in one, so I used coloring them the other day and I put them in a bundle so I could just take them and go with me. But they belong here, so I've got another bundle here. So I've got some I keep in bundles because I know they go together. And then I got my blue violets here, my violets, my red violets, my reds, yellows, yellow reds, my earth colors here. I've got the lighter ones here and the darker ones here. Now these are for hair, sometimes for trees, and sometimes for skin color. I'm not very good with the whole skin color yet, but I'm still learning. Now these are deflector cubes. I got this from Staples. For those of you in the UK, you'll know what Staples are, but I'm sure you can get them in most places. But do check out because the prices for these deflector cubes vary quite a bit, and I found them really for a good price point at Staples. Now I store them here. I don't think I'm not going to need much more storage because I don't intend to get many more Copic markers. This set or these combinations here will give me what I need for each of the colors, but never say never. But I've still got room to grow if I need to. Now Copics, because they are such an investment, you need to learn to store them. They are best stored horizontally. So generally when I store my Copics, I tend to put them like this. So this is how I store them in my craft space. I store them like this, but I do take them away with me when I go into the living room to do some coloring or some practice, and I just put them like that. I can put them like that, and then I can see the colors I want. Take them. As I said, many of them I keep in groups because I know the color combinations I'm going to use. Now to show you how I store my refills. Now I bought this, it's quite inexpensive piece in probably a pound shop or something, to store my color pencils, but then it didn't quite work for me, and then I kept it aside in my craft room for a little while, and then when I went to Singapore and got the bulk of my refills, I got it for a really good price point, so I decided to really stock up on my refills. And remember, when you go to Singapore, take your passport along, you can get a GST free from tax-free. Yes, if you're a visitor. But I got the bulk of it. As you can see, very, very early in the day, I got these various ink refills. Now, these come in 25 mils, but now they've got the smaller refills at a lower price point. It's only 12 mils because you don't really need 25 mils at any point in time. So what I would suggest is get the Copic colors you want. When you like the colors, then you can get the refills. So I know all these refills are for their color combinations from these swatches, so I can very confidently start using these colors for my projects because I know I'll have the refills for them. Now, as I said, some of them I don't have refills. Like for my violets, for example, I've got no R's here, so I don't have a refill for any of my violets. So that's something I will look at when I go to Singapore next, probably, because that's where I found the best price. So when I go next, I'll get it. or if my sister comes over, I might ask her to get me some. So it really depends. So this is how I store it. Now, refills can be stored upright. It doesn't matter. You don't have to keep this horizontally. And that's why I have my refills here. And I can see what I have. And I've also tracked it on my Hex chart. So I have it in my Hex chart. I have it here. And I have got my swatches. So this shows, it really gives me the confidence to just go ahead and use my Copics. And I really like to be organized about my Copics because, as I said, they're an investment and I really, really want to use them well. Let's get into a project and I'll show you how I use my Copics. Now, for alcohol markers, be it any alcohol markers in the market or Copics. I'm going to talk about Copics here. So whatever I say about Copics actually applies to all alcohol markers in for what I use it for. So because you can't use Copics on any card because the absorption rate in the card's different. The ink is absorbed too much. You can't do the blending. It's not absorbed enough. It'll just stay on the surface of the paper. So these cards, from what I've seen and researched, the Express-It blending card and the Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock are the two cards I generally use for my ink, for my alcohol markers and Copics as well. It's got the right level of smoothness. It's got the right level of absorption. It absorbs enough of the ink to allow the inks to blend without ruining the surface of the paper. That's why I like these papers. Now they are at a higher price point, but so are your Copics. If you're going to invest in good markers, why not invest in good card so you get the results that you want to see? Artist grade results. I mean, I'm not an artist. I'm not a fantastic colorist, but using these coloring mediums, the Copics, gives me good results that I think it makes me feel good. So I like the look and the results I get from it. Now, if you're going to use them and you're going to do stamping as well, you need to use the right ink. You use the wrong ink, the ink will bleed. So I use either the Altenew Permanent Jet Black ink, so this one, or Memento. Memento, these two inks will dry fast and your Copics will not bleed when you color with them. Sometimes I even use the brown Memento, the rich cocoa, or the London fork. I like using the London fork sometimes, but generally I use these markers for coloring. So I like both of these cards. They come out really nice. So shall we try a couple and see how it goes? Right, I'm going to go and get a stamp first. I'm going to use the stamp from the Clear Stamp of the Month, January 2022, One Love, One Heart. I'm going to use these two hearts. So let's get started. I'm going to use my Copic, my Misty, and I'll tell you why I'm going to use my Misty in a minute. So we'll start with the Spectrum Noir. So use the Spectrum Noir, and we'll use this. Whenever I use Copics, I generally cut out the image anyway because the color does go through the other side of the card and it doesn't look too good. So I generally do cut out the image and put it onto a card. So I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to leave the stamp in the Misty and I'll tell you why. Oops. So we'll use the Memento for this, Tuxedo Black Memento. Now I don't need an amazingly clear image because after coloring it with my Copic markers, I intend to stamp it again but a different ink. So this is clear enough for me to do what I need to do. So this is my Spectrum Noir. You can see the Spectrum Noir and the Express Blended. There's a slight different color. This is whiter. The Express-It blending card is whiter. This is slightly off-white, so I can tell the difference, but they're both about the same thickness and same smoothness. So that was the Spectrum Noir, which I stamped with Memento Tuxedo Black, and I'm going to use the Express-It blending card. I'm going to use the Altenew Permanent Black ink. Same image, and I'm going to leave it in the same space. So there we go. We've got both this. Let me put that so you can see which is which. So this is Express-It. I can tell the difference because I see a slight difference in their colors. But I'm putting those little labels there for you to see. And then again, this was done with the Tuxedo Black and this was the Altenew Permanent Black ink. So let's choose some colors here. So I'm going to get my swatch. I'm going to go with greens. I'm going to put greens, green leaves, and maybe some pinks and reds. And here I'm going to make the leaves green as well, but a slightly different green. So as you can see, my greens here, I've got what I call a more autumnal green here and a more spring green. I'm going to use these two just to show you the difference. And I'm going to choose some blues and greens. I love my teals. So let me get some colors and be right back. Now I've chosen all my color combinations from my swatches. So I'm going to start with the Spectrum Noir. I'm going to do the flowers first. Let's do the flowers first. So I've got B, R20, R24, and R29. I'll start with the R20. Now this is Copic Markers. It's the same concept. This holds less ink. This holds more ink. This is a little bit less expensive, and this is a little bit more higher price. This is a higher price point. Initially, I got a couple of these, but I think it's worth just going for these. So anyway, I've got the R20, and I'm going to go with this for now. So I'm just going to first color the flower. Just going to go with this one. There is a lot of information on Copics that I've shared in this video. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, remember to press the notification bell so you're alerted when a new video is uploaded. I would love to hear your comments on this video. Did you think the information is useful? Would you like more videos like this? I have over the years gathered different coloring mediums, and I like to get into the detail of it and understand it a little bit more so I can get the best out of it. Do head over to my blog, and the link to my blog is in the description below, where I've got so much more information on all this that I've shared in this video, as well as links to where you can get stuff. I've got no affiliated links, so this is what I use and I'm just sharing it. If you find a better link, something that is more competitive, please share it in the comments below so I'm aware of it as well, and so are the other subscribers and people who watch the video will be aware of it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really enjoy making these videos and I hope you enjoy watching them too. Take care and happy crafting.